Is my new kitten actually a skinwalker? Hi guys. I'm having some trouble making up my mind about this. Just a heads up, I'm Norwegian, so my grammar and spelling might not be perfect. So, I'll just start the story from the beginning. I live a bit outside of town and I like walking in the forest almost daily to clear my mind and just take in nature. Well, obviously I sometimes see animals, and sometimes I come across injured animals, and if I see it necessary, I bring them home and nurse them back to health. A couple of weeks ago on my walk I heard some squeaking a bit off the trail. I went to see what it was, and I found a kitten, practically newborn. I wasn't really sure what to do. The mom should be around somewhere, right? I reluctantly kept walking, worried that the mother might not come back if I stuck around. Maybe she was getting food or something. I stayed within earshot though, because I didn't want the kitten to be snatched up by a predator or freeze to death or something. I waited for about an hour I think, before I decided that the mother probably abandoned it. I walked over to it, bent down and started talking in that high-pitched voice everyone does around any kind of baby. Its eyes weren't open yet, but it moved its head towards my voice and tried to crawl towards me. I noticed that it didn't have a tail. I checked for an injury, but it just looked like it was born without it. Maybe that's why the mother left it. I gently picked it up, walked home with it inside of my jacket to keep it warm, got in my car and drove to the vet. I told the vet how I found it, and she started checking her out. She told me that it was a girl, and that she seemed healthy, except from the lacking tail of course, but that shouldn't be a big problem. Her balance might be affected, but since she's born without it, she'll get used to it easily. She asked me if I was planning on keeping her and I said yes. Obviously, the little furball was adorable. The vet helped me with some formula and basic stuff for it, litter box, food bowl, etc. She registered us in the system. I named her Shira. She congratulated me on my new kitten and I left, happy about having some life in my apartment again. Shira is growing fast, and after just a few days it started to show that this isn't a normal house cat, but a bobcat. I don't really know what to do. I'm supposed to take her back to the veterinarian soon for vaccines, but I canceled the appointment and said that she didn't survive. Bobcats are obviously wild animals, and it's legal in Norway to take in a wild animal in need of help for a short while before releasing it. But Shira knows nothing about being wild. She wouldn't survive on her own. If I take her back to the vet she'll be put down, and I've already fallen in love with my little goofball. I'm not planning on keeping her as an inside cat though. She'll come and go as she pleases, but most likely she'll always need me to make sure that she's well fed and healthy. You probably think I'm crazy for wanting to take care of a bobcat and letting her into my house whenever she wants, but I've had cats before, and there is this special bond of trust when you take care of a cat practically from birth. I know I'm dragging on, and you want to hear about the Skinwalker, and I'm getting there. I just wanted you to know everything from before I started suspecting. A couple of days ago now she opened her eyes. And seeing her eyes scared the shit out of me. Her eyes are human. Like you can see the white around the pupils. I've had several cats before, never a bobcat of course, but I'm pretty sure the eyes aren't supposed to look like that. It's not just like small cat pupils, it's definitely the eyes of a human. And that was when all the Skinwalker stories I've read and heard came crashing into my mind. The lack of tail and the human eyes are repeated in several stories. Don't ask me how a Skinwalker would end up in Norway though. I thought it was a Native American thing. She's pretty much like any other kitten though, playful and innocent. She needs me and I guess I need her too. I don't really have anyone else. I don't care if people don't believe me, in fact I'd prefer if you don't. But I need advice, so if you could just pretend to be part of a movie or something, what advice would you give? Is there anything I can do to check to confirm if Shira is a Skinwalker or not? Has anyone ever had a friendly meeting with a Skinwalker? Maybe taken care of an injured animal who turned out to be a Skinwalker? I need someone to talk to about this, but because of legal reasons I can't talk to anyone here just because she's a bobcat, and I don't want her to get cut open and experimented on if people find out that she's a Skinwalker, if she actually is. So, I thought why not turn to the wonderful Reddit community. The only thank you I can give is to keep you updated on her, how she develops and whatever I find out. If she doesn't kill me first, of course, I don't think she will though. She seems like she trusts me. I'm non-Navajo, and boy have I heard a lot of stories growing up on the reservation. While I've never seen anything myself, which I am grateful for, I have benefited by being around the people who have. There is a different kind of evil that exists in the quiet high deserts and deep sandstone canyons of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, even Colorado in the southern Ute area. I can only describe it as an ancient evil. Now, there are helpful ceremonies, rituals, and traditions that are still practiced to this day. Hell, even a local hospital has an on-duty medicine man. But it seems to be a double-edged sword. What I mean is there is also black magic, which most Dine will not even acknowledge or speak of. We are very superstitious and are heavy with taboos. You will find this with most First Nation people. From Alaska to Argentina, it's just something you don't do, in fear that it will get the attention of unwanted spirits or harmful beings. Skinwalkers or naaldlooshii are just a few stories that kept me up at night with the covers over my head. Here's a quick one for you guys. A Navajo tribal police officer was driving west on what used to be officially named Highway 666. It was lightly snowing, maybe 1/4 inch, which is a lot of snow for home, and he sees an old woman walking on the side of the road. How she got there or where she was going was not apparent because she was so far out in the middle of nowhere. He didn't see her right way, but as he passes, he noticed that she is dressed in traditional clothing, a shawl, dress, moccasins, and her hair in the traditional bun. Not too odd, many elders still choose to dress traditionally. But why was she out in such cold weather this late at night? Hitchhiking, maybe. He passed her too quickly and now has to turn around, and as he makes a U-turn he notices she is nowhere to be seen. This is fairly flat terrain, and he for sure seen an old woman walking. He pulls the squad car over and steps out with his flashlight. Confused, he manages to find the woman's footprints in the shallow snow. He follows the footprints until they suddenly turn into what look like dog footprints leading away from the road in a hurry. He immediately jumps back into the squad car and meets up with another officer near his patrol. He is a little shaken up, but asks the other officer if he has ever seen anything like that. The officer tells him that he has. He also explains that sometimes it's an old woman, sometimes a very beautiful young girl, but always on that road and always in the snow, waiting for the right good Samaritan to let her into their car. I still get nervous driving those wide open spaces at night. I keep my eyes strictly on the road and turn my music up high. I rarely pick up hitchhikers, but I never pick them up at night. I used to work in a secret facility where we investigated paranormal occurrences. Most of the time we got the real simple calls like the cabinets are opening, very common thing. It happens by the phenomenon we call wind, to the very ambiguous Native American burial grounds and the house. Hauntings. Now let me explain how I came to be in said business. My family has always this kind of business since the early 1000s, only of its kind really, where we will go and capture whatever is there. We have special weapons to capture them. I was enlisted when I turned 16, and I recently stopped 4 years later because this stuff was too crazy for me. I had the choice not to get into it. I thought it would be cool. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Now the reason why I am typing this is because I have some of the old case files on me. I took a stack of them and translated some of them into English. They are mostly in French, being that's where my family came from. I will only be posting the ones that are the most interesting of tales. This is what the first transcript said. I hope you at least enjoy what you are reading and would want to see more after. I'll post more if the demand is high enough. This is the most recent file I have. Case file 925-125. Skinwalker, September 23, 2012. Main investigator: Emile Rounceville, 59. Other investigators: Millie Rounceville, 16. Franklin Rounceville, 27. Case type: 459. Town: New Orleans, Louisiana. The cops contacted us about a boy who woke up to start his normal routine in the morning. Wake up, head downstairs, grab his clothes, head back upstairs to take a shower and leave for school. The kid is usually awoken by his mother. Not today though. He woke up late and was rushing to get ready. He ran downstairs to grab his clothes, while his mom sat there, no lights on. He said, "Mom, why didn't you wake me up?" She said, "What are you talking about, Jimmy? I never wake you up." She continues to look forward, and she doesn't seem to move her mouth. The boy goes like, "Okay, Mom, I am going upstairs now to shower." "Okay, Timmy. I will be waiting for you down here when you are done. Please hurry up." The boy bolts it upstairs and shuts the bathroom door and locks it. It is panting and falls to the ground because of how fast he ran up the stairs. The boy's name is not Timmy or Jimmy. His name was Connor. After about a minute of sitting in his bathroom, he goes to turn on the shower to make it seem like he was in it. When he goes to open the curtain, which was weird, he added, because no one ever closed the curtain after they were done. He opens it to find a skinned body in there, and he did not know what to do. At this point he is getting out his cell phone, when he hears his mom's voice again. "Tommy, is everything okay?" He replies with, "Yeah, Mom, I was just peeing." He then turns on the shower, and his mom tries to open the door. She realizes that it is locked and started banging on the door. Connor said the word she started to say did not sound English or French at any point, but some old language like Latin. He proceeds to call the cops. He sits there crying while his mom is outside screaming, "Let me in. Let me the fuck in." Over and over. Up until the point where he heard people knocking on the door. Then he hears a voice through the door, "Sir, open up. It's Officer McMillan. We just want to talk." He opens the door and the police come in. He sits down with the police and begins telling him everything that happened. He asks them how they got in, and they tell him that his mom let him in. Connor starts crying again and informs the police that the body in the bathtub was his mother, and the lady who let them in, he did not know who she was or why she wore his mother's skin. There was an African-American female officer who took him outside, while everyone else was inside having a look around for clues. This is about the time when we get the call. When we arrive on scene, we sit down with the kid by ourselves, and he tells us everything that happened. He also explains that the female officer was talking with the same voice his mother had. We found out who it was at least. Being we bring a little suitcase with us, we know exactly what to bring, a bracelet that stops shape shifters. We go up to the female officer and I mentioned we needed to talk to her. I get the bracelet on her and I tell her to tell me where the other body was of the officer whose skin she took. She led me right to it. We took her in right away. This was a skinwalker. This one was different than normal though. This one would actually skin her victims and wear their skins to turn into them. We have used 2 anti-shifting bracelets for handcuffs, and they must be replaced immediately. This was a skinwalker our family has been following around for 400 years, and we finally found her. Too bad she never used to work alone. We still have another on in the area somewhere. We need every agent in the area to be alert. I was 16 when the little doctor started tormenting me. At first, he played small tricks to scare me. Tricks like banging on my window at night or whistling when I was outside using the outhouse. These tricks scared the crap out of me, but I always tried to ignore them. Putting on a false bravado, and I did not even tell my parents. Soon the tricks got more and more mean. My cat went missing for a couple weeks before I found her dead body outside my window. She looked like she was mauled, not eaten, just chewed on. Then our sheep started to get sick, and the lambs were either dying or going missing too. I would wake up most mornings with scratches and bruises during this time. Animal bones would be outside my window. Toward the peak of the attack, I started feeling a sharp pain in my scalp. There was a small bump causing it, and I asked my dad to look. He grabbed tweezers and a knife. Making a small cut into my scalp, I saw my dad in the mirror with a worried look. He started giving me teas and getting me up to pray every morning. The trick stopped, but I still felt this fear in the pit of my stomach. I slowly became accustomed to this presence. It started to go to the back of my mind, and I slowly stopped drinking the teas altogether. When I had completely stopped drinking my dad's teas, I remember waking up late at night. There was rustling coming from my closet. Trying to ignore it, I closed my eyes. Then silence, and unbelievable quiet. Opening my eyes, I saw a tall figure standing over me. It had the features of a man and woman. It had huge eyes so full of sadness and pain. It leans down inches from my face and covers my mouth with a hand. He doesn't like screaming. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, sorry, it whimpered. I could not move, my voice had left me. All I could do was stare into those dilated pupils. The noise in my closet started to get louder. I was able to shift my gaze to the inky darkness. A leg came out, then an arm, and finally a face. Hello, my child, his grin taking up half his face. He began to waddle closer to me, and all I could think was, he has too many teeth. Waddle, why are his legs so long if he's so short? Waddle, why does he look like a quilt of skin? Waddle, why does he have a child's head? Waddle, that's a doctor's coat. As he gets closer, his features are so grotesque. He looked like someone got random body parts and put them together. His smile is wide and fills most of his face. His teeth are rotted baby teeth filled to a point. He reaches the foot of my bed and lifts the blanket over my right foot. Ah, it seems like a good foot. Large and calloused, good for running. He says, inspecting with large palms and 7 slender fingers. Then he reaches into his white doctor's coat and pulls out a large hacksaw. I'm the doctor, my child. It's time for our operation. He starts to bring the saw closer and closer to my ankle, just above the joint. The tall figure still has its hand over my mouth, and I still can't make a sound. I look back into the slender figure's eyes. It is still saying sorry over and over. For a moment it looks at the doctor, and something snaps. I kick the doctor and push the tall figure, screaming as loud as I can. My dad begins to stir in the next room. The doctor jumps up, his smile now gone. I'll be seeing you again, child. The two run into the darkness of my closet as my dad burst into the room. Ever since that night, I started having night terrors. Things chased me, tortured me, and I have had many dreams of dying. These lasted for years before I finally fought back. Slowly I was able to face my fear of the little doctor and his nurse. I am still recovering from that experience. Whenever I feel like a night terror is coming, I'll stay up the entire night. In the early stages, I had once stayed awake for 4 days. My dad helped me through much of the problems I suffered. It was not until recently that my dad told me I sleepwalk. He told me that it did not happen until that night. Most of my sleep problems didn't start until that night. The creepiest thing I ever did was apparently getting up and standing at the foot of my parents' bed. My dad said he called my name, and I just looked at him with a wide grin and whispered, "I'm so sorry." Whatever it tells you, don't go outside. It's not human. I was in the woods. The air was crisp, and the moon was bright. I was returning from the grocery store when the tornado sirens went off. The sound was the most awful of sounds. It was not a test. It was tested a week ago. That is what I get for living near the Great Lakes. I was not worried. I had lived through 2 tornadoes before this one, of course. I was home then. The path home from the grocery store was a dirt road. On each side of the road was a ditch. There was a small forest on one side. The other side was covered with sprawling fields. I carefully drove into the forest side of the ditch. Not the best decision, but I was irrational at the time. I waited almost an hour, and there was tornado, not to say there was not anything out there. All of a sudden, my car was brutally flipped over. It was fast and painful. Maybe there was a tornado after all. I struggled in this position. I unbuckled the seatbelt and fell down to the roof. I got comfortable. I was not leaving this car. After about 5 minutes, a car drove by. They stopped, and they ran over to help me. A man walked out of the car. He was wearing a bright red shirt, a red hat, and jeans. The way he walked was very slowly and uncomfortably. He had blue eyes that seemed to not be able to concentrate on anything. I immediately noticed something odd. It was a bright day, so I was able to see his shadow really clearly. It did not match. My family has always believed in the supernatural. I was never allowed to sleep alone. I always had an older sibling in my room. I never was allowed to swim without a little glass of holy water. But most importantly, I was never allowed in the woods. I was told there were things in the woods. Bad things. Your classic Wendigo and Skinwalker stories, but also, less known, things. I was told that there were creators that would hurt you and make you do bad things. They could shape-shift like Skinwalkers could, but they did not want to hunt you. They wanted you to hunt yourself. They're easier to eat if you disable yourself. One of the most important things they told me was if the shadow does not match, run. No matter what it is, whether it be a squirrel or my own family. Run. I thought I was just being paranoid about this stranger. I never believed my parents' stories. I never believed it until I saw this person. There was something wrong with their smile. It was hungry. Eventually, they reached my window. They asked me to roll down my window. I refused. I felt like I should, but I know that if I do, something very bad would happen. Even if this was not supernatural, there was something wrong with this person. The man had a raspy voice. After I refused to let him in, he seemed very upset. He had a tone in his voice. An angry tone. After a while, he started hammering on the window with his fist. Open up, and if you don't open up you will die, he would yell at me. I just prayed that the locks on the car held. He seemed to calm down after a while. He said, listen kid, you think that if you just stay in the car, everything will just go away, but I'll be here. Waiting. Those last words terrified me. Just as he finished speaking, the siren started back into full force. A voice came over a loudspeaker, everybody please return to your residence at once. This repeated almost 5 times. I was looking at the tower, which happened to be pretty close to my car. When I looked back at the man, he was gone. So was his car. Then I noticed my older brother's exact car was slowly driving by. He saw me, and with a very surprised expression on his face, stopped his car and walked over to me. He was wearing a dark red shirt and shorts. He looked very tired, like he had been driving for a while. He had very poor skin normally, but it looked even worse than normal. All stretched and bruised. He asked me, what the Mary loving, what are you doing down here? I opened up to him, telling him everything that happened. He just smiled at me and said sure. He also was never one to believe mom and dad's myths. He told me, come into my car. It'll drive you home. And we will grab your car tomorrow. You look like you need some rest. I slowly got out. I was very cramped because I had been sitting in a very uncomfortable position. I was able to get out. I walked over to his car. It was a red truck. It was a Ford, lot of Fords where we live. My brother always liked his trucks. I asked him about the new truck. He said that he and his wife had saved up for a while and grabbed it. The siren was still going, but it was quitter now. I sat in the passenger seat next to him. He locked the doors and started driving. Just then, I noticed him licking his lips.